Hey guys, this is Vandiezo back again with another card fight Vanguard deck profile. So if you guys enjoyed, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and join the Patreon. And let's get one started. Today we have Lyrical Monasterio once more, this time with Wilista, the deck that sounds similar to Clarissa but is nowhere near as good, and the one bush she gave to them just so that they have a 6 deck. So yeah, Wilista is... I'm not going to say it's not fun, because it really is fun. It's just, if we were to rank them all competitively, and then the ones that are the most played, Wilista would probably fall in last place in terms of competitively, and in terms of most played, second to last. So, yeah, but I think Willista's like still, it's an okay deck, and its cards can be used with other decks, so let's go ahead and get this deck started. First up, we have Starter in Brilliance in the Ore Wilista, 6k base, 5k shield, grade 0 with boost. Auto when it's wrote upon, if you want second, draw a card. Nothing too special about it, standard starter. This is not the deck where you have to have the grade 1 and the grade 2. Sorry, let me phrase that. This is not the deck where the grade 1 requires the grade 2, where the grade 2 requires the grade 1 or 3, etc., etc. So you can run whatever ride line you want in this, you can run whatever starter you want, but if I'm going to go all Wilista on the ride line, might as well make the starter Wilista too. Standard starter ability, nothing too special about it, but it's a Wilista, so it gets to be here. So one copy. Next up, we have our Overtrigger in Greatest Star Esteranza. The standard overtrigger for this deck. It's just that it keeps changing per deck. 50k shield, 5k base, grade 0 with boost, overtriggering. You have one overtrigger in your deck. When it does a trigger, remove that card, draw a card, choose one of your units, it gets plus 1 million for the turn. If revealed during draft check, activates additional effect, which is during this fight, you get, during your turn, all of your rear guards get plus 10. So your rear guards hit for bigger numbers. That especially helps in Wilista because it is the deck where it can pump out a field, but only the Vanguard is actually threatening. The rear guards... The rear guards are like they could be threatening or they could just not be threatening. When I say that, I mean like the rear guards could either be hitting for like 20k drops or 5k to 10k drops. Like it's not really that impressive in terms of numbers. The Vanguard's the one to worry about, but unlike Lyrical, it can't restrict PGs, so you know they die to PGs. So Esteranza really helps get your rear guards the plus 10. Only problem with this, while this is the deck that can somewhat go through their deck the quickest, it's also the deck that can go through its deck the quickest, aka meaning you might see your overtrigger while you're going through your deck, and then you have to put it to drop. Because Wilista's skill kind of requires you to put whatever you see from her skill to the drop zone. So if you see this from Wilista, you are probably going to lose the overtrigger, which kind of sucks, but it's fine, especially if you drive check it, one of. Then our normal triggers are 3 copies of the front Habitual Truant Pelageya, 4 copies of Glee singing Tetoel. Yes, I run 7 fronts. I said earlier, they don't get that much power. We need the power. I don't run draws because, like I said, this deck goes through its deck pretty quickly, and it can call units really quickly. So take a shot every time I say quickly during that. So the draws aren't needed. 4 crits in Glutton Nora, just to make the Vanguard more threatening if they just don't block the Vanguard for whatever reason. And then we have 4 copies of Soft Light Pruel, because why the hell not, it's a heal. And you may be wondering, my lineup is all over the place. I have 2 angels, 1 ghost, and 1 demon, or to be more exact, 1 dragon girl. That is because I could, because I just wanted to take stuff from all the other ride lines. So yeah. On to our still grade 0s, but on to the main deck. First up, we have the orders, the things that the deck is revolved around. I'd say these are more important than Wilista, honestly. Truehearted Ruby, the grade 0 order. Play this by counterblasting 1, draw 2, choose a card from your hand, discard it, and put it into your soul. So, pretty much, you have counterblast 1, perfectly fine. Pot of Greed, discard something, this goes to soul. So it's like a way to get soul really quickly, which is really nice. If orders weren't once per turn, you could spam this and draw 8 cards in one go. This can be used in literally every deck because it gets you soul, and some decks require soul. Clarissa doesn't really have a problem with soul, but if you're playing against a deck like Eugene or something that retires a lot, then yeah, okay, then you have a soul problem. So if you just wanted to run this or tech it in a Clarissa deck, you can. People tech this into Kari because Kari requires soul, and a lot of good lyrical cards require soul, so might as well soul it up with here, especially because Kari doesn't use the counterblast at all except for her 1 support card. So getting those 2 draws is always really helpful, and it's just a -1 for it. So all around, 4 copies of Truehearted Ruby, definitely the most splashable order in anything that's ever existed. Next up, we have 4 copies of Everlasting Sapphire, grade 0 normal order again. Choose one of your units, and it gets plus 5k for the turn, and put it to soul. So, same thing as Ruby as it goes to soul, but the difference is this only gives plus 5. Now, Ruby gives you a plus, Sapphire gives you 5. Typically, if you see one of these two make it out of a Wilista deck, it will probably be Truehearted Ruby because that's the one that lets you draw more. Sapphire in a Wilista deck is the one that gets you the board, so most likely you will try to use this more than Ruby in the Wilista version, or in the Wilista deck itself. But otherwise, you never really see Sapphire go around. I get to see someone use Sapphire because, it's either you pick this or you pick Annalise, the grade 3 that is on boost, shove it to soul, or after the battle that it was boosted, shove it to soul, someone gets plus 5. Difference is, one is a order that can be used at any grade, but at the same time doesn't provide as an attack, and the other is a grade 3 that actually provides an attack. Clearly, one is objectively better than the other, which is why you don't run Sapphire in other builds, but you run it here because it's searchable by Wilista, and it also is required for Wilista skill, so 4 of. On to our grade 1s. 3 copies of Tranquil Affection Elivira, AK base, 5k shield, grade 2, grade 1 with boost. Auto rear when you play Everlasting Sapphire. If your Vanguard is Prismagica Wilista, draw a card. So it is a mandatory draw, and it's every time you play Sapphire. So if you've played it once, you draw one. If you've played it twice, you draw another one. And if there's multiple copies on your field, it stacks. This card, as much as I love it, because it gives you hand cards and it makes your plays, it makes your deck a lot more defensive, because you do end up at some points you might run out of hand cards. I hate this thing, because that is a mandatory draw. If you watch the video between this and Clarissa, I was actually going to win against Clarissa with this. Somehow, I was actually going to win with Wilista, but I accidentally decked myself out by calling an Elivira before I played a Sapphire, and then when I drew, I had to draw again, and I was at exactly 2 deck cards from that, and it decked me out, because I couldn't attack with Vanguard without dying. Literally, Elivira was my worst mistake calling a second copy of. I don't know why I did it. In my mind, I thought I could afford to. Be very careful when you're using her because she will duck you out. It doesn't seem like a problem, but considering how often you want to end Everlasting Sapphire into your soul just to get a board out, especially against the decks that retire a lot of rear guards, this is going to come back to bite you in the ass really quickly. But it's still a really nice card to have 3 of. 3 copies of Mini Live After School Katina, AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto when it's placed on rear, soul blast 1 and discard a card. Choose a gem from your drop and put it to your hand. Basically, switch a card in your hand with a gem in your drop zone. Really nice, especially because you soul blast your gems a lot. So they go to soul, then they get soul blast immediately. Now you can kind of fetch them out. Or you can just use this to soul blast a Ruby, because you don't really get I guess the Wilista's main effect comes from Sapphire. I don't know really how you view it. In my opinion, the better effect is the Ruby, but the effect that is more likely to occur is the Sapphire. So typically you could just the ability more important to Wilista is the Sapphire. So you could just Soul Blast the Ruby and then add it back to hand and then use its ability to draw 2. So either way, Katina is really good. Get you a gem back and can be just comboed with Ruby. 3 copies. 4 copies of our PG and Musical Committee Nicolene, 6k base, 0 shield, grade 1 with boost, continue send we have 4 summons in your deck, auto is placed on guard circle, choose one of your units, it cannot be entered into battle, and if your hand has 2 or more cards, choose a card from your hand, discard it. Nothing too special about it. Standard PG, if this and only one other card in your hand when you would use it, you don't have to discard a card, which is really nice, because that means you can be as aggressive as you want. This deck is the one that bounces around with that a lot, because sometimes it's either in a really bad situation where it has to start calling stuff from hand, which means this PG becomes really useful, and then other times, which are the rarer occasions, but still happen pretty often, you call more from your deck, which does bring you closer to the deck out, but at the same time you have a lot more hand cards to work with, so Nicolene comes in helpful a good amount of times with the deck, so I give it 4 copies of Nicolene. Next up, we have Proof of Effort Wilista, AK base, 5k shield, grade 1 with boost. Auto once rode upon, put a card from your hand to soul. Search your deck for 1 gem card, reveal it, put it to your hand, and shuffle your deck. Auto rear, when you would play an order, soul blast 1, it gets +5 for the turn. So, if you play an order, it's a 13k base for the turn. Pretty nice, pretty nice. There is actually reasons to use this outside of Ride deck, because this is one of the decks where you can play multiple orders a turn. So, and this can work with any order-based deck, so automatically that's really good. It doesn't have to be specifically Wilista. And auto, when it's rode upon, put a card from your hand into soul, the search for gem ability. So really nice that it could basically get you a soul and net you a soul, and then it could either get you your Sapphire, which is your quote-unquote, in my opinion, main playmaker for Wilista, or Ruby, your main playmaker for just getting you hand. So all around, this is a really good grade 1. It can be used outside of Ride deck, it can be mainly used inside of Ride deck. 1 copy in the Ride deck, because the deck is good without it, but it's still really good regardless. On to grade 2s. 3 copies of Registering Emotions Romana, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with Intercept. Continues rare if you play Truehearted Ruby and Everlasting Sapphire. This turn it gets plus 10. So that's not really that hard to do because there are ways to play multiple orders a turn, as I said, so it's really easy to hit the 20. Problem is, this requires you to have one of the cards that, allows you to play the multiple orders in a turn, and if you don't, then this is just a vanilla because you can't play more than one order a turn. But either way, when you can pull it off, it's still really good because that's a 20 plus a Persona Ride, 30. If you called it from Wilista's effect, it's a 35. All around, decently good card, can hit numbers, and can make your opponent's play slightly more difficult. And the funny thing is, it just says if you played the orders during the turn. It doesn't say your turn. So if they ever give us a way to play normal orders during the opponent's turn, then this thing can become a 20k base during both players' turn. Until then, it's a 10k base during the opponent's turn. But even then, it's still a pretty good card, and I like it, so 3 of. Next up, we have 3 copies of Mystic Voice Renata, 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with Intercept. Auto, when it's placed on rear, choose up to 2 gem cards with the same card names from your drop zone, put one on the bottom, put the other to soul. So, basically, you get deck fodder back, which is really nice because Wilista decks you out very quickly. And like I said before, I would have had just enough to win if I didn't accidentally call a second copy of this thing, which ended up decking me out by exact amount, which sucked, but that's fine. So this can fix your deck out problem for free, by the way. And you can also send 1 card to soul. And it just says choose up to 2 gems. So pretty much So regardless, if you pick a gem, you have to send it to bottom first, because it doesn't say up to. So you have to send it to bottom first, and afterwards you send it to soul. So, get 2 gems, you get an extra soul, which means you can use Wilista again, and you can get an extra deck card back. So all around, Renata's really good, and I like her, 3 of. And then our last grade 2, yes, we only run 6 grade 2s, which may or may not be a bad thing. I have yet to run into problems with that decision. 1 copy of Expanding World Wilista. 10k base, 5k shield, grade 2 with Intercept. Auto van, once per turn when you would play a gem card, draw a card. So pretty much here's what you do. You have this thing, you ride on top of it with this thing, you use this thing skill, send anything to soul, get Truehearted Ruby. Play Truehearted Ruby. Counterblast 1, draw 2, discard a card, send Ruby to soul. Skill of this thing, because you played a gem. Draw a card. Literally, you just draw 3 cards. Yeah, this one's really good. If that wasn't a once per turn, in theory, you could, in theory, you could, grade 2 rush your opponent with a very specific grade 3 that would kill your opponent if that wasn't a once per turn and get a lot of hand cards off it, but unfortunately it doesn't once per turn. And continues guard circle, this unit gets plus 5k shield for every 2 gem cards and drop. Now, here's my thing about this. Wilista, I feel like they put Wilista in there just because they wanted to give it another ride line. Lorinol feels really good, Clarissa, we don't need to talk about, Felt Rosa feels really good, Acestus feels fine, Celestial is, depending on how you build it, will either go really bad or really good. And then there's Wilistas, which felt like they put on there on a whim. And yet, Wilista's ride line cards arguably are the best ride line cards because, even compared to the other decks, just in general, because they serve a purpose outside of the ride line. Okay, I'll give Greed on something for this. I'll give Greed on that, and I'll give Gravidia that. Their ride line cards are really good, and I'll give Flagberg an okay on that. But these things are genuinely really good because the first one, the grade 1, can get plus 5k just by playing an order. And this one is a 10k, gets a plus 5 shield for every 2 gems and drops. So if you put 8 in drop in total somehow and you're not decked out yet, that is plus 40, wait, no, that's not plus 40 shield. Let me go, that's plus 20 shield. So all around, that's really good because that's a 25k guard. So there's reasons to run the ride line in deck, and that's why I love about this so much. They made the deck bad, but they gave the ride line such good cards that it's worth considering running. So 1 copy of the Wilista, even though I do say it's good, it has guard circle restriction, and the deck does fine. It's never guarding power that does this deck in. It's more along the lines of decking out. It is never pure guarding power that is the main problem. Somehow, even against the Carissa matchup, it was just knowing that I was going to deck out and trying to stall out until I could see heal triggers, which never really worked out for me. So Wilista, just 1 copy. On to our grade 3s, we run 3 copies of Fox Girl, Attentive Deep Love Ottilie, 13k base, grade 3 turn Persona Ride. Auto rear when you would play a Truehearted Ruby if your Vanguard is Prismagica Wilista, it gets plus 10 for the turn, and you may play an additional order. Increase the number of plays when activated. and it's not a once per turn. So pretty much you play one Truehearted Ruby, 23, play another order, play another one, 33, play an order again, play a third Truehearted Ruby. This is 43 with another play of order, play a fourth Truehearted Ruby. This is 53 with a another order, and then after that you probably used up all of your Truehearted Rubies, most likely. So unfortunately you still get another order play, so you can just play an Everlasting Sapphire or set order, but you are like out of plus 10s. Either way, that is really good, and it was the play I was talking about earlier where you could like loop this together, but then I remembered, right, this requires the grade 3 to be useful, so you couldn't do that play anyways. But if you got rid of that requires the grade 3, and you got rid of this once per turn, oh god, your opponent would be in for like they would suffer so much against Lyrica. I mean, especially against Wilista. Like Wilista would have like a point to make. Like it may be a bad deck, or like sorry, let me rephrase that. It may not be the best deck, but oh god, it can do its job when it needs to. So 3 copies of this thing, because you don't want to see it too often. Even though it does like get your main playmaker out, this requires you to spam Truehearted Ruby like there's no tomorrow, and Truehearted Ruby brings you closer to decking out. So 3 copies of Ottilie. And then our last grade 3 is or the last unit in general, is our main grade 3, 4 copies, 3 in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck, of Prismagica, I cannot say its name, Wilista. 13k base, grade 3 turn persona ride. Act Van, Soul Blast 1 Truehearted Ruby. Until end of turn, this unit gets plus 15k, and your opponent cannot intercept. So that just means regardless, this is a 28k base, and your opponent cannot intercept for any battle. Like your rear guards, this thing, somehow something from your hand if you manage to attack from the hand. That isn't just call from the hand, but still. So that's really good. They can nullify intercepts. And Act Van, Soul Blast 1 Everlasting Sapphire, not once per turn. Look at top 5, choose up to 2 unit cards, call them to open rear, discard the rest, and those units get +5 for the turn. Now if you notice, both those abilities aren't once per turn. The only limit to them is that you have to Soul Blast the specific order. So if you have 4 Truehearted Rubies, you can just Soul Blast 4 all in one turn and get +60. Why you would do that is beyond me, unless you were really confident that your opponent didn't have a PG. Like, I'm never that confident. I was in the case one time where I could have Soul Blasted 4 Truehearted Rubies, but I didn't want to take my chances with like my opponent having 5 hand cards, and most likely one of them being a PG. And I don't regret that decision, because he did have a PG in the end. It wasn't fucking worth Soul Blasting all of my win con just to get nullified by 1 PG. And then the Everlasting Sapphire, the one where you just get to call 2 rear guards. Now, this one is the one that sucks, because you're looking at top 5, you get to call 2, but then the rest go to drop. So if you see nothing of use, or you have no open rearguard circles, you are just milling 5, which is really bad. But like on the bright side, if you do call something, they do get +5. Like this is what, like they stole this straight from Cursed Souls Wriggle in Agony from Zorga, except this is 1 additional card, and you don't have to pay 2 Soul Blasts for it. So all around, Wilista is okay. Definitely could screw you over by the top 5 mil, but it gets enough power on Van and a good amount of power on rear to the point where I don't think it matters too much. So I'm going to give it a nice 3 of in the main deck, 1 in the ride deck, 4 of in general. And that's the deck. I hope you guys enjoyed. All around, Wilista is really fun. Like, it's not the best. I'm not going to say it is, because like even though I don't play competitively, I know it's not the best competitively, but it's still like a fun deck. You get a good amount of draws. You get really close to decking out, and I don't know why I find the decks that get close to decking out extremely fun. I know E.T. finds it fun. I'm going to deck out I'm going to drop my entire deck on my first grade 3 turn, which we both thought was a bluff. It was not a bluff. And the Amon game where he just sold Church 25 just to prove a point. Yeah, I wish I was joking about these times, but I'm not. So yeah, Wilista's just all around really fun. Get you power. On Van specifically, it gets you a board. It mills you out, but all around, it's the deck where it's like Eugene a Hexa Orb. It doesn't look strong now, but something tells me slowly but surely this thing will claw its way into competitive, and slowly but surely we will all regret ever thinking that this deck was shit. So that's it for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, donate to the Patreon, join the Discord, follow the Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to stand up your vanguards.